Hello there, you're about to see a clip from a longer YouTube video that I did, and in this clip I will be talking about my own experience being a PC in a session, and it is pretty much the only session that I can remember, more or less, and it is a session that I received when I was, I would say, 11 or 12 years old, somewhere around that time. I was at the time still living in Switzerland and going to my local org in Basel. And yes, needless to say, this session was quite traumatic for me as a child. And yes, so I'm just gonna talk about that in this video clip and a little bit about the aftermath of that. I do hope you find it interesting, if not necessarily amusing. And this is the part where I have to talk about my own experience with that and why I never managed to get past this. I always managed to do all the TRs without a problem, always passed them, but actually auditing, I could never be audited on this. I could be the auditor, I could do that as an auditor, but I couldn't be audited on this. And I mean, this is all speculations. The reason for that is because when I was a child, so I was still in Basel in Switzerland. So I left Basel, Switzerland to join the cadet org in St. Hill when I was 13 years old. So I must have been, it was not long before that. So I must have been maybe 11, 12. I don't think 13 yet. And there was a gentleman who was doing the TRs Objectives course, but he, usually when you do the TRs Objective, you do it with a twin. So you do it with another person at the same time, because then later on when you do these sessions, one person can be the PC and the other one can be the auditor. And then after you have finished one session, you could switch and then you can go on like that and you can go together through this course fairly quickly. And this person either didn't have a twin or maybe the twin wasn't available for a prolonged period of time. Whatever the case was, he needed a PC to audit. And again, I was 11, 12, and I was put in this room with this man to do these TRs. Now, before these TRs, yes, of course, these are the TRs, the basics of it, but we were doing an actual auditing session. We were not doing TRs, we were doing an actual auditing session of body control. And before we did it, I seem to remember that I was reading through the TRs, the TR drill, so I knew, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what it's about. I understand. So I don't just go in there blindly. Anyway, so we started doing it, and you're not allowed to stop until there is an improvement in the PC, until the PC is happy, relieved, makes statements that show that the person is actually doing well. And there is a statement which is, what turns it on turns it off. So if there is a reaction, so let's say you're doing an auditing and suddenly my arm becomes very itchy and I start scratching and stretching and I'm really weird, it's very itchy, you know. The auditor, he will make a note of that and he will just keep going until it stops itching. Because the idea is that the reason why it starts itching is because there is an underlying restimulation happening, and it's restimulating something. So a restimulation is when you have had an incident in the past that was very unpleasant and it was connected with pain and unconsciousness. Within this memory, you have lots of things that you are capturing within there. So you're capturing the smells, what you see, what you hear, the feel of your clothes, the temperature of the room or whatever. And later on in life, maybe one of these things will trigger the memory, and you won't necessarily remember the incident, but your body will remember it. And then suddenly you will feel very uncomfortable because back in that situation, whatever situation that was, there was a certain temperature in the room and you were wearing a shirt or whatever. And then now you're wearing this shirt, it's the same temperature. And then suddenly you will feel the same way as you did in that moment of pain and unconsciousness. And this is called a restimulation because it restimulates something that has happened in the past. And so when you're doing auditing, these restimulations can happen. So suddenly going through these routines again and again and again and again can cause that past incidences can be restimulated. So my arm starts itching. And this could be because maybe when I was a child I broke this arm, and when it was in the cast it was itchy, and now it itches. So that is the idea behind, or what resimulation is, right? So in auditing, what turns it on turns it off. So you just keep going until it stops. So regardless of what will happen in the room. Now, I was doing this drill with this man for many hours, and then after a while, I didn't want to do it. No. And then he was physically manhandling me and moving me and picking me up, because I was very, very skinny. I was very skinny back then. I'm still quite skinny now, but back then I was like, I could turn sideways and I vanished. It was like a magic trick. And so he just easily picked me up, put me over there. He moved my head, and I started to cry. I started to shout. I recall throwing things at him, because there was a table there, and I think there was the course pack there, and maybe some other things. Surely there was a pen there or something. And then I would just throw things at him to make him stop, because I couldn't get out. I tried to get out of the room, and I don't remember if it was locked or if he got there before me, and then he just put his foot at the door, so I wasn't able to open it. I don't remember what the situation was. In any case, I wasn't able to get out of there, because, of course, again, he's not allowed to let me escape. I'm not allowed to get out, because I have to. And he does it because in his mind, he does it to help me. It's for my own good, right? Because obviously I'm very restimulative. So he needs to make sure that I'm basically letting it all out so it doesn't affect me anymore. But essentially what happened, he completely broke me. He broke me like an animal. I resisted. I was crying. I was shouting. I was swearing at him. And at one point, I just realized there's no point, because he completely ignored anything that I said, all that I said, pretended nothing that I was saying was in any way of any interest or concern to him. He might have said, "Oh, I understand. We'll just do a bit longer. We'll end the session soon," or whatever he might have said. But it would just go on for hours and hours and hours and hours. And I was just broken. I was completely in apathy, and before that, I was going insane, frankly. I was throwing things at him, shouting at him. I was generally thought I was going mad. And then after that, I was just like almost dead. I was like, I was exhausted. I just gave up, because I knew there was no point. I just kept on walking from one end of the wall to the other end of the wall, touching the wall, turn around, and keep on going. But I was completely dead. I was completely gone. And then after a while, he stopped it, because there was no improvement, because it's supposed to, I couldn't even fake it anymore, because I knew that you have to be happy to be able to get out of there. But I was so broken, I wasn't even able to fake being happy. I knew I had to fake to be happy so I could get out of the situation, but I was not even capable of doing that. I was just completely, it just broke me. And yeah, that was intense. And then I got out of there, and it's very blurry what happened afterwards. I don't know. I may have been taken in by another more trained auditor to sort of on the e-meter to figure out what happened exactly, and so on and so forth. In any case, this was never resolved. And then later on, when I was about 13, 14, and I did the first time the TRs Objectives, again, I flew through the TR drills. That wasn't a problem. But then actually being in the same situation again and doing this drill, I couldn't do it. I was able to do it for maybe 15 minutes, and then I just panicked. I was just panicking. I couldn't do it anymore. And I was trying to get out of the situation in any way that I could. And I also said then to the person who was doing the auditing with me at the time that this happened to me when I was a child. And I said this to the supervisor. They should look at my folder where all of that is recorded. And then it just sort of, okay, I don't continue anymore. And it was just sort of left open. And then later on, when I was 15, 16, again, I was still a cadet then, we tried it again, and then the same thing happened again. I wasn't able to do it. So that is the reason I was never able to do any more auditing. And this is the only auditing that I have that I somewhat remember. I have had other auditing, but I don't remember any of that. I don't remember that at all. That I can somewhat remember, and it's a very unpleasant memory. And I think that is something where I wouldn't say that is the point where I completely lost my will, or I completely lost my childishness. But I think that is pretty much the moment where I completely lost my innocence as a child, I think. Or at least some of it, because when I was younger, before this happened, I was quite, I was serious in the sense I was certainly more serious than children, but I could still be very silly, and I would tell tall tales, and I would be yat at the dinner table, and not eating my dinner, because I would just make up stories or whatever I would do. And then after that has certainly reduced. I certainly was not as talkative at the dinner table. I was more, I would say I became even more introverted. It was strange because as a child I was quite introverted with other people, but at the dinner table I'd be like that. But I'm the same now, actually. I would still consider myself quite introverted, but when I talk about something that I have an interest in, or something that maybe I actually have some actual good knowledge of, for example, talking about cooking, talking about art, talking about music, or something like that, where I have genuine very interest, I can talk non-stop, right? And in other situations, I'm very awkward. I don't say anything at all. But no, what I'm trying to say is that I think I pretty much lost my innocence as a child. From that moment onward, I became much less a child than I was. And in a way, I am glad this happened, because I was stopped from becoming a child auditor. There was a childhood friend of mine. We grew up together in the Basel org. By the time she was 14, she was a professional auditor. And so I'm very glad that didn't happen to me, in that sense. So that is sort of like a silver lining, I suppose. But anyway, that's what happened to me at doing the TRs Objectives, and during the time when I was a child, and receiving this auditing. Anyway, I do hope I didn't bring the mood too strongly down or anything like that. I do hope you found this interesting. Oh, darlings, and please do hit the like button if you liked this thing that I just did. If you find my way of talking about this sort of stuff, my own little stories, and explaining the Scientologies, please leave a subscribe. And yes, have an excellent day. Do enjoy, and goodbye.